Greetings, guys. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Monette. This is my channel, Evolve with Monette. For those of you that are new here, I'm a professional intuitive empath, so good to share energy with you. If you're interested in working with me, you can find my information below in the description box. Thank you for inviting me in. Come on in. Let's chat a bit. Sometimes it takes a rat to draw out a snake. Over the last couple years, my angels have been working with me on cutting off connections and working on my codependency. We are always forever a work in progress. And so if there were any deeply rooted codependent relationships, even some codependent relationships I just have personally with myself, codependent addictions or focuses or areas that are distractions like social media or whatever, right? I've been made acutely aware of areas that I need to work. But it began with interpersonal relationships first. Now we're to the part of it where it's my own issues. It's so funny. Once you have removed a lot of toxic things, you're like, oh, finally did it. You get a little bit like happy, a little bit punch drunk. And the angels are like, awesome. We're glad you did it. Now let's work on this BS with you. So that's the stage we're at. So I will teach about that as that happens too, or as it unfolds and it's more teachable, or I'm still very much in process with it. However, I can teach about the lessons I learned about the interpersonal dynamics. So to shorten this, we're just going to call them a rat and a snake. I had two relationships, two very, very close relationships. One more close than the other. One was more of a romantic soulmate-ish undertone. One was a soulmate undertone that was a platonic, completely platonic. Okay. That being said, I had issues with the snake specifically, where there were issues about boundaries and attachment and enmeshment and codependencies. Now, relationships are a mirror. You guys often hear me talk about that. And that means that we both were having things be shown to each other, meaning I couldn't have this exploration, I couldn't have this deep dive happen if we both didn't have issues with codependency. So we both did. But it was one of the major issues that she was being asked to work through by her higher powers as well. I didn't realize that the angels had a whole plan to use me to be the way that the lesson worked out. And that happened specifically because she refused to do it with the people that it was actually supposed to be with. So it was very easy for it to happen with me, because it's harder sometimes to make excuses, or it's easier to make excuses when the dynamic is different, or it's more entrenched or familiar or whatever. In any case, I didn't realize that this was a snake. For a long time, I really loved this person, loved them dearly, respected them. I had noticed that they had a controlling demeanor. One of the ways that, one of the ways that it was described to me years and years ago, but the way that I deal with things is I take my time to get to know someone, and I pay attention to how they treat me before I make any decisions about their, reality. And someone once described her as an iron fist and a velvet glove, and how apropos, truly. So this means that it was a form of control. And I do remember even saying to her in the beginning of our connection, I really didn't mind the way that she handled me, because as a, fire sign, I don't like when people are like outwardly bossy. I'm kind of bossy, but in order for me to be handled or finessed, if you will, you have to come with a certain level of charm and diplomacy. I don't want to feel you trying to control me, because that doesn't fly for a fire sign ever. And so she had a way with me. She did. I have to give her complete credit. She did have a way with me. She was able to, direct, guide, or suggest things to me, and I was okay with it because our relationship wasn't unhealthy. At the time, I didn't feel like there was any threat or issue that was happening. I wasn't concerned. at all. I felt like, she was very divinely guided in. I knew that she was a soulmate, so I was very okay with the way that things were playing out. Until it got a little bit corrosive. See, that's the funny thing. Sometimes people will be brought into your life and in a relationship dynamic that is completely, fully sanctioned and signed off for. She was a soulmate for sure, but she ended up being a karmic relationship for me by the end of it because she went rogue, etc., 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 but also because she didn't want to elevate. And that always is the deciding factor. And the fork in the road in any one of your soulmate relationships that may turn karmic is that someone doesn't want to do the spiritual work. See, it's all love and light and kumbaya when they can play patty cake with you and they can roll around in your energy. And maybe you can share their energy too. There are certainly lessons that she taught me too, positively. So we were sharing mutual happiness and whatever, but see, in any soulmated connection, there will come a test. And people don't like to hear that. They just think, oh, this is just going to be so easy. And tests come in all of your relationships, whether it's soulmated or not. But for us, we had a really good run and a really good coast, if you will. You can coast in a car, put it on cruise control. We got to coast for a long time, but then still, the angel said, okay, now we're going to allow the demon time because you both need to see what the truth is of your relationship dynamic. And can you stand the test of time with it? And are you going to live in authenticity? Are you going to be honest? Are you going to devolve back into what's comfortable? She was a very, very strong, powerful, and at times difficult test for me. I have gotten really good in the last several years of cutting people off immediately or pretty quickly. If someone's a little bit more delicious to me, then it might take me a little longer. But if they are like family to me, then that can be even longer. And that is just the byproduct of codependency. People may get grandfathered in to a way that you used to be. And because she was introduced as safe to me and as someone who was filled with safety, and she was so loving. I gotta be fair. What I'll always be is fair. She was so loving in the beginning of our connection that I refused to see how corrosive and how toxic it grew because I couldn't believe my eyes, honestly. I was just like, this can't be life. Not this person. Like, I really was so sure that she was forever going to be in my life and forever be part of my life. And I always wanted her there forever. I had so much respect for her. I loved her so much. I pedestalized her, and that's another thing that my angels really have been working with me on, is how quick I have been to do that when the love is strong or the bond is, intense, and I really feel. And as far as platonic friends go, I just don't know that I had loved someone as much as her. I just loved her so much. I've had better natural, easy chemistry with other people, like that chemistry that breaks your back and that will attack you and that you should not really stay around for. So I've liked people in a faster, easier way because our devils definitely played off of one another. But she and I didn't have devils that played off of one another, or so I thought. It wasn't this low vibrational toxic behavior. The devil, though, that we did have that was playing off of one each other and that was insidiously hiding out was codependency. So that was a lesson that I was supposed to learn in that dynamic. But she was really good at cloaking and masking. Years before the rat appeared, I had noticed issues and things that weren't fair. And I would try to hold her accountable for it. And I'd be like, hey, how come this thing can't happen? And you just refuse it for me. But I'm always making myself fit into your energy, into your family dynamics. And when it comes to me requesting what I need to feel fulfilled in the relationship, you just shoot me down. Now, this is me. Even as I'm talking to you, I'm noticing my own body language. That I regressed back into more of I was in a cult dynamic. She was not a cult, but in a, well, she wasn't a cult at all, in any sense of the word, but I regressed back into almost childlike self-protective behavior from narcissistic. When I'm talking, and as I've been working through this, and all of that, I realized that the way that I shut down, instead of really standing on business initially when she started to just refuse compromise with me or not give me what I wanted, but definitely insisted that I show up and be at every single dynamic or family function or whatever the case may be for her. But I was like, well, I just need this one thing, and why can't I have that? Why is that so difficult? And there was not any excuses made. She just absolutely didn't deal with it until I really held her feet to a fire about over a year ago. But at that time, I was already over it. So it's a different feet to the fire. When I'm still in play with someone, meaning I'm still engaged and I still care about you, my state on business looks different. But by the time I had finally communicated with her, and the rat was there, so maybe that may be incentivized her differently, though that wasn't my purpose at all. But I was just like, I'm sick of this. Like, why? And also, she was resentful of me for getting my needs fulfilled. And the need, excuse me, specifically, just so that you know, was just like one-on-one travel. It wasn't anything extravagant. And that's the thing that I do insist on in my relationships. There isn't any friend I have, or any booski I have, or any lover or friend, tell me again, nobody, that I don't have a one-on-one travel with. And I don't mind doing travel with the family, the friends, the more the merrier at times. But I need one-on-one time with whoever I'm connected with. There isn't any friend that I have that I don't do a one-on-one connection trip, because I'm chemistry testing all of my friendships and all of my soulmated relationships, and et cetera, et cetera. So if we can't, how are we by ourselves before we bring in everyone else, no matter how much you want to introduce me to other people or whatever the case may be? What's our one-on-one time like, actually? And that's just a wise thing that I learned many years ago to do, because it really does change the trajectory of how much time you want to spend with somebody if you can't really just be one-on-one with them. Do they always need an entourage? Do they always need a crowd? So that was a need that I needed fulfilled. It was that simple, y'all. It wasn't like, I need you to scratch my third toe on every Tuesday and boil me a hot pot of milk and laminate my feet with it. Like, that wasn't it. So I had started manifesting other connections where I could have that one-on-one connection and travel with, right? And even if they had the other connection had more of a romantic undertone, this was still platonic. But I was like, why can't I just get this with my friend? This is crazy to me. It doesn't make any sense. She's a woman of means. It wasn't about money. It wasn't any of those things. She had fantastic flexibility with her schedule. It was just because it was just a no. And it was an absolute no until she was like then over explaining herself when she realized that I was standing on business. And I wasn't demanding it of her. I was just like, I'm not asking you anymore. We don't have to go anywhere. I don't think we should try. Actually, what it made me realize, message, was that we were actually not compatible. In the travel aspect, we really weren't compatible. She thought we were compatible, and I had even fooled myself into thinking we were compatible. But what I was doing was a lot of people pleasing, guilty as charged, and fitting myself into dynamics that made me uncomfortable, and where I was going to have to like navigate things or be the person that she would get to come emotionally dump on. There was never not a trip where it wasn't some hours long session of her complaining about her interpersonal dynamics, whatever they may be, where someone had heard her fifis or whatever. And that's fine. As a friend, that's my job. I'm here. If I do it for clients, I will happily do it for a friend that I love. But then I started to realize a pattern. And I also started to realize how selfish she was. And I also started to realize how non-compromising she was, and how the world was stopped for her interpersonal and family dynamics. But she wasn't willing to drop or adjust a damn thing for me. But she insisted that I show up and I take part in every single thing for her. She was not willing to budge for me, and I was like, this is one-sided, and this doesn't really feel fair. It doesn't really feel fair. There was one time I do think that she did do a one-on-one with me, but it was I think it had something to do with my sister or something, but that's the only one that I can think of. If I'm wrong, I will obviously correct myself even during this, because I don't want to tell a single lie here. But in any case, that still involved family. It wasn't just us going off to do something. So even that involved my side of the family, if that makes sense. But in any case, that was the thing that I had required. And then whatever. But there was other issues too that were cropping up, and I was frustrated and whatever the case may be. And I started to hold her accountable. This is even before the rat appeared, right? But she would just dismiss me, essentially, and just be like, kind of like, get back in line and do what I say. And she would want me to come up to visit her, and I would go visit her, and whatever the case may be. And I did that when I was in excruciating pain. I was still very much going through a lot of surgeries. I was in surgery a lot, very frequently for a long time, for a couple of years. And I visited her and whatever. And so I was in pain, and sitting up was very painful. And I remember her one time saying to me that she had come to visit me, and I hadn't come out of the room, which is something that I could do. Like, I can hermit, but I did come out of the room and say hello, but then I said, I'm in so much pain. I even came out and I sat down and sat on the couch for a little while, and then I was like, I'm gonna go and lay down. A lot of times she was coming to visit me because I just had surgery and stuff, so it wasn't like she didn't know, or like I kept a secret or whatever. But when she was upset that I had held her accountable, she was like, I counter your accountability, and I want to tell you that you didn't, what did she say? I didn't spend time with her in the way that she had expected me to. And I was thinking about the fact that I was in excruciating pain that my pain meds couldn't touch, like fresh hell pain. And even her visiting, I was skeptical about, because I knew I couldn't host the way that I would want to, but she was like, that can't happen, that I am left alone. Like I'm like, are you like a toddler? Like, you can't entertain yourself? That I am left alone. And it wasn't just like I didn't talk to her all day. It wasn't that at all. It was like, which is a thing I can do. I'm such a person that can be in my room all day by myself, just doing me. But I was actually in pain. And I thought, God, how selfish can you be? I'm physically either coming to see you or you're coming to see me. But I am like in the worst pain I've ever been in my life. No kidding. Like, had to lay down everywhere for years. Okay? For 2 full years. If I was in my vehicle, I was laying down on my side because I couldn't sit up. And it wasn't an exaggeration. I was growing back skin in the area where I couldn't sit up at. And so it was like, I just couldn't even understand. And I knew that she was just, I thought maybe she just wanted something to say back to me, or maybe it really bothered her. But it was just another point to our compatibility or understanding, because I would have never said anything like that to her. Like, that can't happen. I'm like, so that means that I can't be who I am. And also, I can't be who I am in this moment of extreme healing and extreme pain, of which you're very aware. And, you get an iron fist, velvet glove. It was always wrapped up in care, but it was like this insistence, and it was this, all of the compromise was not real. It was really like, I want you to conform and compromise and do what I need you to do and show up where I need you to be and come on every trip that I want you to come on. But I'm never going to prioritize you, actually. Even if she felt like she was emotionally or whatever, I was like, no, this is a very specific thing I'm asking for. And this is a very specific thing that you just are skating around until she didn't want to skate. And then she was planning a trip to, let's go to Egypt, and then let's go to Africa, and let's go to India, and let's go here, and let's go there. And I was like, and I knew at that point, and I told her that, I was like, we're not going any of those places, because that's not really what you wanted. What you wanted was what you did for the last several years of our friendship. And you're only saying this now because you could tell I'm at my wit's end with you. But also, what I've learned, ironically, fuck around and find out, while you were playing games and being controlling in your own way, I discovered we're really not compatible. We don't vacation the same way. And whether I'm in pain or whatever, there was also another really snide thing she said because of my surgeries and whatever. She was kind of like making fun of my mobility. And she was like, do you really think, it was like this like backhanded, underhanded, it wasn't even a compliment, it was just a comment. Do you really think that you could like make it around, like and be like, and really travel and do whatever? And then in the subsequent year or two following, I did a lot of traveling without her. So much that it made her very, very, very upset. And, God sent people in that were patient with the fact that my mobility, I literally was walking with a cane at the time, okay, guys? That my mobility was limited, that I was slower and whatever. And that's not to say that I hadn't traveled with her, because I had traveled with her before my surgery. And I'm just a big girl, so I was slower, period, than she is. She's a skinny legend, God bless. But, so I was like, well, if I made it when I was just a fat girl walking around the streets of Europe with you, then how come, like, what's it, like, it was such an insult to me. I was like, wow, Well, people will tell you what they really think of you. And then my angel says, say less, sis. We've already brought in several other people that will travel with you. Even if they turn out to be toxic, you're going to scratch off these places from your bucket list, because she is not going to ever do this with you. And she doesn't want to, because people do what they want to do. That part. Okay. So, all right. So anyway, there was just a lot of issues of control. You guys get the point. And of her having it always her way, and me being there to transmute the energy and whatever, but her being like, thank you, as long as it, essentially to me, it felt like as long as it served her. So that's fine. Okay. I manifested, as I will do. Can't keep a good fire sign down. Can't keep a good metaphysical person down, period, in the collective. And so what I did was I manifested the right connections where these things could still be possible. But that was it. I was pretty much like at my wit's end. And I kept trying to show up and do all the things, and she kept like accusing me of not showing up. I have another video here about that. I don't know, maybe this is a video that's all in one. It has to do with people pleasing, the cost of people pleasing, because, I always fall for delay with my taxes, right? Like for, I'm saying the word delay, but postponement, right? So I usually file my taxes like in the middle of the year instead of like during tax time. And I had a chat with my CPA, and he was like, he was talking about my travel expenses for the previous year. That was when I was doing my taxes this year. And he was like, can't you write off a lot of this? Like, what was this business, or what were these travel expenses for? Or what was this bulk of expenses for? Because I had my receipts for my travel and all that stuff. And I had traveled with other people besides this friend. But what she didn't realize, because she was so ungrateful and just so myopically focused on herself, was that 75% of my travel budget that year was allocated towards things that had to do with her. So it really didn't count as business. I could have embellished it or whatever, but I don't do that, y'all. I don't play about that. I don't play about the government. So it was funny, because I know if she were to look at it, she would be like, oh, it's because you were traveling with, let's say, the rat, or you're traveling with this person or that person. But the whole last year of our friendship, I'd spent so much money literally trying to prove, even though we can be broke out of with so many other people, this one still had a hold on me, that I was a good friend, and I kept showing up, and I was spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm not exaggerating. And one trip at the end of the year was done, and it was so manipulative, and it was so, I had no business being there. She was in this like weird pissing contest with the rat, where she didn't need to be. They weren't even on the same plane or caliber. The way that I love this woman was not even comparable, okay, to the way that I felt about the rat. The rat was, I knew, I don't want to say an oddity, but like a temporary thing. I knew that was not real, okay? But I knew that literally she was dispatched in off the strength of my manifestations, probably to get some of this traveling done, actually. So I very much, from a higher perspective, understood her purpose. Even with all of her toxicity, there's other things that I learned too. There's a price you'll pay, because sometimes these rats be out to get you. Rats are always for themselves, purposely. Even if she's not out to get anybody, she's out for herself, for sure. But we'll get to her in a second. But, so with the snake, I am traveling and trying not to be a fake friend. And she was gossiping about me and talking shit about me. And she wasn't protecting me. And right at the beginning of the year, the same year that my accountant was looking at these expenses, she was throwing me under the bus and like telling me like, oh, my husband knows this or knows that, and he just figured out. I'm like, no, you told your husband. You were gossiping about me. Your butt hurt, so you wanted someone to pillow talk with, and you think I don't do this for a living. And that really pisses me off when people are in my life and they utilize my talents and gifts and pay me for them, because she did. And then they want to act like I don't have them. That, y'all, the way that doesn't fly with me. So I was like, so the same intuition seems to be null and void when it's about you, actually. But it seems to work brilliantly to help you manifest your promotions and to figure out situations with coworkers and all the rest of it. But all of a sudden I'm stupid and crazy and seeing illusions and in Neptune energy. Oh, got it. So I knew that she was just literally had gone rogue and turned on me, and it was out of jealousy specifically. And that's what I mean. Sometimes it takes a rat to draw out the snake. But I remember let me just get back to this to make my point complete. She wanted me to go on a trip with her, and it was never meant for us to be on that trip. We had a trip plan, and it was during COVID, and it got canceled. We were supposed to go to London, and it got canceled. And that's how fate intervened, because even then my angels were like, you guys really aren't compatible for travel, and you feel stressed out. And she later started to vocalize her lack of faith in my even mobility to manage it, or whatever the case may be. And which is ironic, because I did a hell of a lot of traveling when I was sick as a dog. And also, meaning, like, I had this, like, zest for life. I was very focused on, like, I almost died, so I don't care what kind of pain I'm in, I'm going to check all these things off again, right? So, in any case, she just wanted to, like, compete, and she wanted to prove that we could go on all these trips that I had been asking her to do for years before the rat ever appeared. The rat was only in my life for maybe a year and a couple of months, maybe. So I have been friends with this woman for years and years and years and years and years, and been trying to voice these concerns with her for years and years and years and years, and having her dismiss me for years and years and years and years and years, and other concerns too. But it was always like, she would be so appalled and then really pissed, which is what I've learned, that people that don't take accountability get mad at you for even saying anything. So it's not just that they don't want to cooperate with you. It's that, how dare you even call me out? So I was dealing with all of that, which showed up really major towards the end of it. And that's when I would have gnawed my own arm off to get away from her at that point. Because I knew what I was dealing with. Even though we did not have a romantic relationship, if you ever dated an older gentleman, I have, or an older woman, there's a certain way that older people are in relationships that's extremely controlling. And while she was older than me, but not older like that at all, that was the energy that started to happen. Even though it wasn't romantic, it was that same, like, it's almost like an incredulous disbelief that you would be disobedient. But we're friends, though. But we friends, though. Okay? What did Tyler say to Kai? But we friends, though. So what you talking about? Okay? Because I can expect that from someone I'm dating, but that level started to be really corrosive and started to erode my faith in this friendship. But I knew what it was, and that's why I say the faces may change, but the behavior is still the same. I'm very grateful for the lessons that I've had in my life, because it helps me to disembark faster from things that people will usually put up with for a lot longer. When she got to that point in the last year, especially the last few months of our friendship, I was like, oh, I'm so out of here, because I'm not fucking you. So you don't get to act like this with me. Even someone that I was sleeping with, it wouldn't be acceptable. But no. I've done too much work and whatever, and I've been trying to be controlled by too many people for you to show me your iron fist that's so smoothly wrapped up in that velvet glove. So, anyway, the London trip was never supposed to happen, but she is insistent. She wants to make it happen. And that's when she did her final grand manipulation. And this is when I saw her completely. And again, we're going to get to the rat and why the rat provoked a lot of this, like, her worst, lowest vibrational behavior. We all are capable of this. It's so funny. We both have sisters that have similar names, like down to the first initial vowel, down to the sound of the name. And she and I had discussed that both of us felt that our sisters definitely lived in their more lower vibrational selves. They were more diabolical. They were more scammy. They were more whatever. And we just didn't take that path. But here's the beautiful thing about full circle and understanding that there is duality in us all. When I was dealing with her towards the end, I saw her sister in her. And I also used my own sister, the same sisters that we used to be like, oh, thank God we're not these sisters, to outwit a lot of her situation and withdrawal. Because my sister is crafty. That's one thing she is, for sure. And she's witty and she's smart. And she plays the fool really, really well. And that's something I've learned to do out of survival. Before I ever met that sister, I met her as an adult, or as a child. I was 8 when I met her, but reconnected with her as an adult. But my point is that my trauma responses actually helped me survive the last year of that connection. Honestly, especially the last few months when she was just, the gloves were off, the velvet glove was off. It was just the iron fist smashing at me, and she was really trying to hurt me. And it was just diabolical, laser focused, evil ass energy. I call her the Cruella de Vil of humans, because she would never treat pets and talk to pets and deal with pets the way she was trying to deal with me. So, I have no business. I already went to London. I already had the experience for whatever it was worth. And that was it. But she thought we were supposed to have the experience together. The universe didn't think so, because it got canceled by COVID. When things happen in an overarching way, and it's like much bigger than what you could ever have anything to do with, the fate, destiny is at hand. The hand of fate is at play. So I knew we were not supposed to go, but I was in my people-pleasing way, because she was grandfathered into an old me. She met me almost 10 years ago. So she was grandfathered into an older me, and because I'd always seen her as not dangerous and so sweet, but also bitchy. There was a bitchy side to her. I just didn't ever receive it, and as long as I wasn't receiving it, we were good, except towards the last few years of our friendship, even before the rat appeared, I was, in fact, receiving it. She started to be really bitchy. And just, like, have little jabs and say little things and try to, like, put me in my place. But I let it slide because I just loved her. That is my ignorance. That is my naivety. That was my codependency. I'm going to own that, guys. Sometimes in order to heal after situations, you have to look at the part you allowed to happen and to be play. Because I saw her as such a nurturing comfort to me, and because I have been so terribly abused, and I'm not just saying that, like, I mourn for my inner child and my younger self for some of the shit that I allowed and tolerated. What she was doing didn't feel like that. And that's why I think this is a message I'm supposed to convey to you guys tonight. It didn't feel as bad as the other things had felt. Does that make sense? It didn't feel as bad as what I had been through. And, one second, guys, my hair is itching. It didn't feel as bad as the other things that I had been through. And so I thought, well, it is not as bad. It can't be as bad as the other things that I've been through. This must just be, some quick thing, or maybe I'm misseeing it. I thought I was looking at a mirage. Like, maybe I'm not seeing this clearly, right? But it took a rat to make me see that I was seeing exactly what was in front of me. Anyway, she calls me up one day and she's like, hey, I need a +1. And I was like, well, what's going on? And she was like, I have a situation where my husband is going to, what'd she say? My husband is going to watch his favorite team play, what did she say? In London, right? They made it to the Super Bowl or whatever. I don't know what happened. I don't know. It was not the Super Bowl, but something. I don't know about football. But my husband's going to go watch his team play, and he's bringing, like, one of his friends. And I need you to come. I need a friend to come. I need my good friend to come, and whatever the case may be. And so I was like, okay, but I'm skeptical, because I know it's always the entourage and the shenanigan and the whole family, and I know how her family gets her wound up and how it's overwhelming for her, and I'm always the one she cries to, and I'm always the one that's transmuting it, and so it's not a fun trip for me. And also now I'm on the schedule of the family, and we move at different paces, as she made so very clear, and then I'm getting death stares from some of the family members, and I've set boundaries with the family members before, and it was like a whole thing. So I was just like, towards the last year of our friendship, I stopped. We would be in the same place. I would fly in to meet her out of my obligatory duty and guilt trips that she would give. And then also because I love some of the people that I was going to see too. But I wouldn't even stay with her and her family. I stopped staying with them because I was like, I'm not paying all this money to be stressed out, to be your at-hand therapist that you take for granted. And and take for granted, you say, Monette. I remember us going a trip. I orchestrated the trip, and of course, instead of it just being me and her, it ended up having to be other people, which was fine, but it was a long drive, and this was like at the very beginning towards me recovering from my surgery, so I'm on a bumpy road. I'm in a lot of pain. We drive hours to get to the place, a state away from where she was at, and this is a thing that I'm always so careful of. I hate when people try to be like, tap dance, show us your magical gifts, because you can pay me for that, and also sometimes be considerate that I don't always want to be on. She did pay me, so I'm never gonna lie. Not a thing I could ever say about her. She was very, 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 very good about always compensating me completely and fully and fairly for my services. So that's a chef's kiss. That's, I've told other stories about other people on the shrimp in the room a lot or whatever, but she's not the person with the shrimp in the room a lot. But my point is that if someone does something good in my life and I'm here teaching about it, you're going to know both sides of it. And the truth is, she was fantastic about being respectful about my work and paying me a fair wage. She didn't get a discount. She didn't do anything. In fact, she would not even take the discount. I tried to give her friends and family in the beginning when I used to still do that, and she insisted, and she would pay me my full hourly wage. Okay, so I just want to be so fair about that. But what I like in my life, and what I'm always looking for, and I've told the story before about Michael Jackson, is I don't always want to be on. And sometimes, especially on a vacation, of which that was, it was for her birthday, I don't want to be tap dancing and showing my magical gifts. And there was something that came over her, and it was this insistence that I dance. And all of a sudden, I felt like the help. Whether she meant for me to feel that way or not, I was tired, and I had been kind of just free reading, just channeling for her and the other two women that were with us, of her family and friends and stuff. And I was tired, but she wanted me to read her adult daughter's friend too. And I did, and I was tired, but it was this moment where I remember her looking at me and, insisting, and I'm oh, I'm so tired. I already said, I had been feeling tired and I was in pain. Again, sitting up for me was excruciating for a long time. So I was just I had started leading in maybe an hour before, oh, I'm gonna go to bed, man. It's been a day, it's been a night, it's been a whole thing. And she was yeah, and this is not her fault, because I was the one doing the people pleasing. What I should have done was stood on business and took my ass to bed, because I was exhausted and I was in pain. But she wanted more from me, and it was the first time, this is before the rat ever was in my life. So she tried to make it a problem, this other woman, and I'm no. This bullshit's been going on a lot longer than the rats ever appeared. And so she was in her own way kind of mind Jediing me and wanting me to go past my limits, essentially. That's it. And whose fault was it? Was my own. Because to anybody else, I would have been get fucked. I wouldn't have done it. I literally tell people, I'm not coming to your house to play with your friends. I'm actually not going to come to your house if you're going to have an entourage there. People do this all the time. Surprise. It'll be 3 or 5 people, or whoever is there. And if I'm your friend, I'm coming one-on-one. One-on-one is a big deal for me. I don't know why. It just is. Also, I do know why. It's because of my empath energy, and the way that my gift works is that I get very overwhelmed with a lot of people, because I can't help but read. I know what's going on. If I'm in a restaurant, I know who's fighting with the shift manager, and what's happening over there, and who didn't clean up whatever, and I'm in everyone's business even though I don't want to be. Does that make sense? That's how my gift works, is I can hear conversations. I hear internal dialogues. I know issues. I know that you didn't get sleep last night because your kids were awake. I know that you're trying to prove yourself and get a promote. I just know things that is heavy sometimes, and that's why one-on-one means so much to me. And no peopling, something I discovered in the last year or two, means so much to me. Even a broken clock can be right once or twice a day. I didn't want to give them twice because I don't like them, but twice a day. So I learned that I need no peopling. I learned that I need to decompress. But she was grandfathered into me that didn't really fully understand that or know how to articulate that. Even though at the time that happened, I did know it, but I still couldn't articulate that to her because I had always been on. She would I would be traveling to see her, and I would arrive at her house and she would have people there. And it's not it's your house, do you, boo? But I would insist, like, let me get an Airbnb. She hated that because she wasn't in control. See, there was controlling issues that were coming up with her that I was noticing. So she would hate that. And I was like, oh my God. But she doesn't understand I need to decompress. The last thing I want to do is be immediately sitting down to a dinner, have whomever looking and waiting at me. I also drive crazy. When I say crazy, like, I drive really, really slow. So, like, let's say I'm supposed to be there 8 hours. It could take me 12. So I'm exhausted. And I do a weird thing where I hate public restrooms. So unless I am dying, I don't use a public restroom. I literally have driven the length back and forth to her house many times without using the restroom. So when I get there, I want to go to the restroom. I want to lay down for 30 minutes, even especially with my injury, right? But she would just always disrespect me and just always be like, I'm going to do what I want to do, which is fine. And when I would be like, well, let me get an Airbnb so I can do what I want to do, she would hate that. So I was just like, between a rock and a hard place. She refused to respect, like, I need my boundaries, and I don't want to look at 75 people as soon as I come in the house, and I don't want to be on, and I don't want to have to be magical and conversational and whatever. I just want to, like, get in some comfy jams and take a shower or whatever, right? Anyway, that's just an aside. There was just a lot of issues of it had to be her way, and she just, it's like she couldn't hear me saying these things to her, because I always did say, like, I need some extra time, or I'm not ready for this, or I don't want to have to communicate with anybody. Like, I know that sounds really diva-ish, guys, but I wish you could step inside my body and my energy. You would understand. It's overwhelming for me sometimes. Anyway, so fast forward back to the London thing. Oh, let's backtrack. I didn't like that because it was like she was trying to push me to give something that I didn't have to give. And that wasn't a time that she was paying for anything. So it wasn't like I was on the job. It was just her kind of like expectance and kind of flexing my gift and being like, yeah, why don't you just go ahead and give some little extra energy to Ginger? Well, that was a lot of extra energy for me. It was everything I could do to fucking sit up. Okay, I was exhausted, actually. Man. Anyway, so she's like, so I asked her specifically because of how things always end up happening with the travel. She's like, I want you to come to London with me. And I was like, okay. The first thing I asked her was, who's all going? I don't know if that's just a black thing. I don't know if that's a white thing. Do y'all do that? I don't know. Comment below. Do you ask who's going to be at the party or the trip or the whatever? Because the more the merrier is not always the merrier, right? So I was like, who's all going? And she was like, nobody, it's just going to be me and you, because now she's hyper aware that this is a complaint and an issue, and that I have not been just letting her roll me up and fold me up over the last year and a half. I stopped. I was like, I'm not traveling with your family. I'm not doing all of that. It's too much for me. Like, girl, it's too much for me, okay? And you have to live that. That's your life. That's what you chose. I just want my friendship with you. I don't need to do all this. I'm always going to play nice and be cordial and kind to your family because I actually love them too. But absolutely not am I going to do this with you and spend thousands of dollars just so that I'm fucking miserable and being yelled at and whatever else. It was just insane. So I asked her specifically, will so-and-so and so-and-so be there? She was like, no, they just went on a trip. They really can't afford it right now. It's going to be a little too spendy. I mean, they could afford it, but they wouldn't spend it, whatever the case may be. So keep that in mind. Tuck that in your little brain bank, right? So she was like, so yeah, they're not going to be there. It's just going to be me and you and my husband and his friend and their wife, but they have other things to do. They're not even staying in the same hotel as us, all that, right? So I was like, okay, all right. So then she also had like this hard on for like trying to get my mom to go on a vacation. And oh God, I just have a lot of resentment for how this went because my people pleasing got me there, but she was pushing and pushing and pushing because she wanted to win. It was a pissing contest. She put her dick on the table. She just wanted to win against someone, but she wasn't in competition with that person except for in her mind. That person was of no threat to her and of no competition to her. The way that I loved the snake was incomparable. Like, I just absolutely loved her. I adored her. I did not have those same feelings for the rat, no matter what. Even though the rat was more of a romantic undertone, I love the snake. Like, lay down my life. What can I do for you? You are my friend. You my friend, right? I loved her so much, guys. So I was like, all right, I guess we'll do this thing. Especially because she answered my question that no one was coming. There would be no surprises. Fast forward. By the time we arrived in London, there was probably approximately 10 people on that trip. Okay. But here's where the angels don't play about me, thank God. And they always tell me the truth, actually. And so we went out to dinner with family. And we were at the Melting Pot, their favorite place. We're sitting across from each other. I'm sitting across from my friend. And one of her family members that was added into the trip, because she manipulated me. She completely bamboozled me. She completely manipulated me. She loved it. She knew what she was doing, and she knew what she was doing the whole time. Oh, Monette, you're crazy. That couldn't possibly be. Absolutely. Because out of innocence and sweetness, and that's why I respect this person to this day, the family member is like, oh, thank you so much for buying my ticket to London. What? Buying my ticket to London. Now, the family member still paid for all the other stuff. She insisted. But the ticket was, I guess, her non-negotiable, or I don't know how it came about. So my friend lied directly to my face and was like, telling me that it was just going to be me, and she just needed me, and she just needed me, and it's just one, but she just wanted to win. Can we be honest? It was all ego. It had nothing to do with spending any time with me. And so I made sure when we were in London that it had nothing to do with that either. I was like, you fucking tried it. But it had, because I was pissed. I was resentful. My mom had just retired. She didn't need to spend that extra money if it wasn't going to be, you know, really whatever. She really was like insistent that my mom come. My mom had some mobility issues too. And she was like, don't worry, I'm going to be there for you the whole time. She absolutely wasn't, because always her family and her life was prioritized. When I really had a real medical situation, an emergency with my mom, she was like, I'm trying to like get people Ubers and stuff. I just can't deal with this right now. I was like, oh, okay, say less. I was like, I'm never like, I'm the way that I was so out of that relationship, friendship, I was like, it's my mother, and I dealt with it, and God bless, I dealt with it by myself and with the help of lovely staff, friends, paramedics, and all of that shit, and people literally having to help my mom up. But I will never, ever, 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 ever forget her grandiose promises, because it was all about her ego. I just want to win. I just want you to be on this trip with me. I hate that you went on a trip with someone else, and I just want you to go on the trip with me. And now I want you on the trip with me, and I don't give a damn what I'm going to have to say to get there. So the person says, thank you for buying my ticket. So it's a direct lie to what she had said to me. While she's acting all innocent all the time, I'm like, you lie all the time. So, okay. And that I'm allergic to. I can't deal with that. So, and the girl's so sweet. The woman, adult woman, is so sweet and simpering and thank you and da 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 da. My friend's neck, red splotches. She's freaking out. She's breaking out in hives that she probably couldn't see, but I could see from where I was sitting. And I just look at her, because I'm like, not only did you lie to me and tell me it's too spendy, that's how she made me calm about it. Was like, oh, they won't be able to because, you know, they just did a trip and it's just not going to be in their budget and whatever. So she lied about it. And then when it paid for the ticket, didn't mention it to me. And so now we end up on the trip of 10, and distractions abound, and no time one-on-one is spent, and I'm out now. Okay? When I say I'm out, I'm like, this will never happen again. This woman is so manipulative. She's always trying to pull all these strings because she just has to have it her way, but she's just not considerate. My mother didn't need to spend that money. I'm so pissed at her about that. And so she thought it was about this rat and whatever. I was like, girl, please. The reason I say sometimes it brings out a rat, it takes a rat to bring out the snake. The rat being in my life stoked all of her lowest vibrational energy that she had very cleverly hidden in that velvet glove for me. And I thought, my God, my freaking God, today, you have always and are always this way. And it made so clear all of the stories she had told me where people had said things to her about her lack of authenticity or accused her of treating them badly in whatever, you know, way that was accused to her of, whether it was perceived racism or it was just mistreatment on some kind. And I always let people's real personality shine. Show me who you really are, and then let me see how you treat me. And for the most part, minus some of that controlling stuff, she treated me really beautifully. But then it started to get more and more controlling. And when the rat came out, see, a snake loves a good rat to eat. And even if she was worried about the rat around me, well, I got a spirit team, thankfully, and they had me clocking the rat the whole time. So I was not in danger, no matter what it looked like. But I moved differently because she was so triggered I stopped sharing with her every single detail of my life because I thought I wanted to protect her. I felt guilty. I felt bad. I also know what that's like to have someone come into someone's life and then they're consumed with him and that's all they talk about. And I didn't want to do that to her. Plus, I thought I could pretty much figure out what was going on with the rat on my own, which I did. But she was so upset about that, which was later confirmed by her adult family. You know, you can't withhold things from her and da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, you all are fucking brainwashed with her bullshit. And just because she's beautiful and well-coiffed and put together and whatever, there was just this maniacal fucking uncontrollable power play energy underneath it all. And girl, y'all, I was so disgusted and frustrated because I was like, no, you all have to deal with that bullshit. I do not have to deal with that bullshit. Just like I didn't have to deal with all the family dynamics and having to transmute all that shit. I'll tell you another quick story. We were on a cruise one time. It was the last day of the cruise. The angel said to me, don't go to breakfast with her and the family. And I said, huh, sacre bleu? Why, angels? And they said, they called one of the family members. They said, Hurricane, you know, it's going to be Hurricane. They said her name. And I was very transparent because I always set boundaries with her family and I would let her know when I was setting boundaries. Like, I don't have the bandwidth for this today. So I told her, my friend, I said, I'm going to go ahead down to breakfast ahead of you because the angel said there's going to be a problem with fill in the blank. And I don't have the emotional energy this morning to deal with it. It was the last day. It was disembarkation and all of that stuff. So it's always a chaotic kind of time. And I wanted to go down and get my little gluten-free pancakes and sit down in the main dining room and wanted to have a nice, like, calm meal. I said, I will save a chair for you. She said, yeah, I have a feeling that they won't even be coming to breakfast anyway. And I said, I'll see you down when you get there. But I could tell she was offended. How dare I say that to her? Well, I said, see, I was coming out of my people pleasing with her and out of the fog of it. So I always had really healthy boundaries about, I'm not doing all this family dynamic stuff every 25 seconds. Like, it's exhausting for me. So lo and behold, 25, 30 minutes later, she comes down. She's flustered. Those same hives are on her neck and chest. And she is just beside herself. And I'm like looking up, but I already know it was Hurricane, da-da-da, you know? And the thing is, I had an interesting relationship with Hurricane, I set boundaries with her. I would give her pushback if she was rude. Most of the time, I'd be offended on behalf of her, of my friend. Like, I'm a big taker-upper for my friend. I don't give a damn who it is. And so she would call me crying and be so upset and beside herself about the treatment of her family and the treatment of this person to her. And so I would diffuse that. But I understood, like, you know, there's a nuance to that, too. They loved each other and whatever. And the person loved her too and all of that, right? You know, like, things are complicated sometimes, and in my line of work I get that. So, but I also would want to stick up for my friend, and she would act like she would be so offended if because there would be times where the girl was the girl's a woman, okay, she's grown, she's in her almost 30s now, she's probably in her 30s now, but I remember one time specifically being like, you have so taken your mother for granted, and you have so like whatever, and her literally like pulling my hand back to stop me because she was beside herself that anybody would chastise. I was like, oh, that's the problem, and y'all are crazy. Okay, so I get it. You guys are very used to your craziness. You all just bitch about each other behind each other's back, but you could easily fix this by setting boundaries, because ironically, that young woman is very respectful with me. And she knows that I have a bark and a bite and that I don't deal with her bullshit, because she would tell her that, like, oh, Miss Monette, da-da-da-da. But she still would connect with me, still call me, and still knows that I loved her and would care about her. But I don't play those fucking reindeer games with people, okay? But that was the games they would like playing. So I was like, I don't have to be part of this. So when she comes downstairs 30 minutes later, flustered, she's like, she goes into the story about how the family member decided she didn't want to, I don't know, her luggage wasn't out, so she couldn't find her luggage, or it wasn't carried off, or I don't know. And here's what my angel flashed me back to, is at the dinner the night before, the family member was bragging about how it's just a suggestion that you leave your luggage outside the door. If anybody's been on a cruise, there's a whole like protocol for how your luggage is on the last night. She was like, it's just a suggestion. She was quite snide, quite full of herself, and she was very sure that she was right, and we all were looking at her like, okay, I hope that works out for you. And then it was like this whole debacle where she's like, no, they hid my luggage behind the curtain. And I don't know what really happened. I don't care. But I remember sitting at dinner thinking, how do the rules not apply for you? Because I've been on a lot of cruises, and they always tell us to do the same thing on every line I've been on, okay? I've been on a few different lines. So I was like, okay. And it turns out it was a fuck around and find out moment. Bless her soul. She fucked around and found out. She didn't do what they said to do, and then it didn't work the way she wanted it to. Now that becomes her mother's problem, right? So normally I would diffuse that, but my angels gave me the alley-oop and the heads up, and they said skedaddle out. The difference is normally I would have just skedaddled without communicating exactly what it was. This time, for whatever reason, probably because the lesson was unfolding, my angel specifically had me say to my friend, hey, this is going to go left. Good luck. And I went down and I had my gluten-free pancakes and such. So then, like 15, 20 minutes later, my friend is sitting, okay, so 30 minutes later, she comes down, she's frazzled. She sits down in the chair, a table for two. The whole problem that I'm talking to you guys about, right? So, a table for two. She sits down. I've already ordered her a coffee, a seltzer, because I love my friend. I know her. And she's bitching and bitching and bitching. And that's fine. That's what I am there for. I really had no problem with that. I just was like, I'm not transmuting this every day of my God-given life. Like, this is not a family vacation for me. I'm paying thousands of dollars to listen to you cry or be upset or feel rejected or feel whatever this person or these people, it wasn't just one person, made you feel. Anyway, so I listened, I diffused, nodding my head, cutting my pancakes. Yeah. What happened? Oh my gosh, really? Is she okay? All that, right? And 15 minutes later, the daughter, the friends, everybody else comes downstairs. She's incandescent. She's pissed. Why are we not at a table for four? Well, my angels told me she would not be joining us for breakfast that day. And I had told her mother, I will get a table for both of us. See you when you can make it down. So she's mad. They have to go find a table. And I said to my friend, oh, please go join them. Please. Because I wanted to finish my breakfast in peace. And I knew it was going to be some bullshit. That's my point, guys. My intuition was on and popping, and I was listening, but I was like tired of transmuting that all the time. It was very exhausting for me. I understand every once in a while, and I understand, on a phone call or 3 or 5 or 20. That's what friends are for. We listen to each other, bitch. But that was one of the lessons that they were teaching me in this situation, is that my mouth and my ease of communication to her was causing me to cast spells on me that were detrimental to my life, my well-being, my home, and my family, because I was so freely, and she was very covetous of the information. She was very investigative, very much like wanting to know every single little detail about my life, which I was very comfortable with for a long time, because I thought that's what love is. And I learned more things in even this toxic situation, is that that's enmeshment, and that's not healthy, and everyone doesn't need to know every single thing about you. And it actually was, she was a dream killer and eater, if you will. Like, think of a boa constrictor and a snake, how they can swallow things whole. I remember telling her things, and right before they could take hold or take root, it would just like disappear like the never-ending story. It would just be sucked away into the nothingness. I couldn't figure it out until the last year and a half, when my angels were like, it's because you keep communicating with her. She is not happy for you. She is not rooting for you. She wants you to be under her thumb, at her disposal. She wants to be directly the energy source. She wants you to be her direct energy source and personal seer and soothsayer and whatever. I didn't really ever think about it that way until they started showing me empirical evidence, and they said, shut up and see what happens. See how your manifestations come to fruition when you stop talking to her. See how you start having magical things happen. So there were things that would be happening in my life, even with my husband, whatever. I just wouldn't share with her. I just stopped. And when I was bitching with her and commiserating with her all the time about husbands, because I felt like that was the purpose of her being in my life. We were both married ladies and all of that. I was like, we don't think the same. You're way more conservative than you're trying to let on. You're actually offended by my choices and by the way I live my life. It is you're diametrically opposed to it. And because of that, she was casting negative energy onto it. A lot of you guys in the collective may have had this happen. You may not have realized it was happening. And I'm pretty intuitive and like a crack shot when it comes to like figuring out puzzles. When it comes to my life, but sorta, okay? Sometimes it can be right in my face and I'm like, what? So I'll figure out your stuff. It's super easy. But my stuff, it takes me a minute. We are not exempt from learning our lessons. And so she was eating my blessings, guys. She was literally eating my blessings. She wasn't happy for me. She was not rooting for me. She was actually unhappy for me unless it was directly tied to her energy. So she lies about the London trip. She gets me on this trip. I'm overseas, whatever, fine. And I just spent a lot of time with my mom and made it as good as I could be. And I kept my distance from her energetically. She also got sick, too, while we were there. And I didn't want my mom to get sick or me to get sick. My angels told me she's going to get you guys sick. And she wanted to, like, get something for me or do something for me. Acts of service is one of her love languages, too. And I was just like, no, I don't want you to touch anything. She was offended. And I was like, no. And then my mom ended up getting sick. I listen to my angels. My angels talked to me very clear. Okay. So, fast forward here. So, that was kind of at my wit's end. I was like, I'm not supposed to be around her. My angels were like, no. There was something that happened with the rat and the snake on the same day. They both went a certain kind of rogue in their own ways. And I cut them off both the same day. In my mind, I was like, okay, this has to end because it's clear. It's not a coincidence that my angels allow me to see toxic behavior from them that parallel to a certain degree. Different behaviors, but a parallel energy of disrespect, disregard, selfishness, contempt, and jealousy that they were exhibiting to me. And I was just like, I'm not going to get sucked into the cycle because you have to be very careful, guys. You can sign up for another tour of duty. I had done a lot of time with the snake, and we were eligible for re-up, if you will, to re-sign our contract. And I was like, what am I going to be here for? Fucking miserable? This woman not only doesn't like me, she wants me to be the help for her energetically. That's exactly what it was. She wanted me to continue to be like, you was kind, you was good, you was wonderful. She wanted me to help manifest things for her. You know, there were things in her life that I did help her manifest that I know for a fact, and I'm not saying it to be cocky, she'd still be trying for it right now. Doesn't mean that she wasn't worthy. Doesn't mean she didn't get it. But there were some mental barriers that I was helping her erase and work through. And that was able to bring it to her in the time frame. It still took me longer because she had a lot of disbelief. They told me she should have had it 2 years previously. But she did get it. So I was at the end of it. I really tally because I'm very much like, I have objectives when I'm in any relationship. Even if I don't communicate it directly to the person I'm with, I have objectives with my client. I need them to get here, here, and here. So with my friendships, it's even that much more. So there were things that I wanted to check off of her list. And there were some things that I thought were going to just persist, that she was going to resist. And there were some things we were able to check off the list. So I felt like my work was done. I did as much work with her as I could possibly do. And then it started to compromise my own emotional strength and sanity. And I was like, I can't do this with you anymore. I've given you all of the tools. You're going to be very successful. I even, helped her as she ushered in new friendships that I knew would be my replacements. I had no resentment about it. I actually really liked those people. I thought they were fantastic for her. I knew what the pitfalls and the lessons and things would be in those relationships, but that was not my business to tell her. She can still navigate it and keep them for the rest of her life. And she can build friendship exactly how she wants to, because they will acquiesce if they want to in the way that she might like them to. So in any case, I was done. I had checked it off. I was like, I am retiring from this. I've done all the work that I need to do here with you. We have done it. And then there was one final grand manipulation where she just wanted to win again. And so she essentially tricked me. She was real tricky in a way, which is so funny. Not even me saying it, I just never thought she was this kind of person. But she wanted me to be somewhere. I came, I did the thing. Now, me and my husband have both said, no, we're not going to go. No. We both knew we weren't supposed to go. But we did. And what it was is that she wanted me to be in front of her because I had held her accountable. And I told her, well, we can still have a friendship, but she was very disrespectful to me. Remember I said the snake and the rat went rogue on the same day. So she was very disrespectful for me. And she was very involved. The thing that she was disrespectful in me, she had a direct hand in. So I was like, this is so unacceptable. And, I would never talk to someone this way if I had a direct hand in their life in the way that she did in mine and in that situation, connection, and relationship. And what it was her wanting to put me in my place, but also was her letting me know she was angry at me because I had started to hold her accountable. I started to say no. I started to be difficult in her eyes. She didn't say it to me. Energetically, I heard it. She saw me as being difficult and rebellious and hard to control. That iron fist was like, fuck this velvet glove. She just was like, it's an iron fist and I'm trying to get a hold of you and you need to sit still and you need to stop and you need to pay attention to me. So she was telling all these lies that I wasn't showing up for her. And my CPA could beg to differ because, again, the chunk of money that I spent just on travel that had to do with her ungrateful ass. And that's why I was like, oh no, I'm not paying any more money to show up for you to treat me badly. that have to be your on, the spot therapist for you to take me so for granted, and then also then yell at me about the thing I'm trying to help you for. Oh, you've lost your fucking mind. And so that was it for me. So I'm on this like doomsday trip that I had no business being on. Another one. And she goes out of her way to try to trigger me like my toxic twin. She met me at the time that my toxic twin and I were on the outs. So she did very specific behaviors. Even if she didn't mean to, the angels allowed her to show up for me in a way that was very, almost like carbon copy to her. And there was a few things she did absolutely on purpose. There were some things that she didn't even realize she was doing. That was my gift and discernment. They got to do the heavy lifting and the grunt work discerning that. But in any case, I said, after I drove away, I said, I'm never looking back. I blessed her. I blessed it while I was in the house. I was very clear with her. I communicated with her subsequently. Afterwards, she started being emotionally manipulative. She was telling her family member, like, y'all, people are so petty. She was telling her family member, like, she couldn't afford, like, I got her a gift, and she was telling her family member she couldn't afford to refill the gift. It was a coffee machine. And this shit, and when I was there, she went out of her way, because I guess she had taken it off the counter. She went out of her way to tell me that she didn't like it, or she didn't use it or something. Because I had rented an Airbnb, because my angel said she's going to be on some fuckery. And I'm so grateful I listened to my angels. And so I didn't notice, because I wasn't having coffee in the morning at her house or any of that stuff. And she did some last minute, like, shuffling, manipulation. Now that I know how she works, all of this was done on purpose, okay? And then I'm having to, like, hopscotch and, like, outwit and outsmart her. And I was like, you really want to play this game with me? Because I'm going to win. I win games like this. You don't realize how competitive I am. Just like I didn't realize how bitchy and diabolical and controlling she was. I was like, this is what I do. Okay, if you want to do this. So because I wasn't giving her the attention she wanted to hurt me. So she was just like, I don't like entrepreneurship. And she was just doing wild shit that even if I told her family it, they wouldn't believe it. So I never did. But she was just doing wild stuff. When I held her accountable, she was like, I have Alzheimer's. Like, girl, it was wild. I was like, you what? Because she just was pissed and didn't want to apologize to me and was pissed that I would hold her accountable. She's used to getting away with murder in her life. And I realized that now. I was like, okay, well then you will get away with murder. But the cost of murder is me. So I know you will miss me, but I'm not going to miss this at all. And that's the thing. And that's the power dynamic that I want you guys to step into, is you bring a lot to people's life, collective. You do a lot for people, and they know exactly how much they do. Hence why they start acting squirrely and crazy when you want to now do you and get away from their insanity. So in any case, she does some weird stuff, and she's really purposely trying to trigger me. And when I talked to her family member was like, oh, she can't afford the cost of the coffee pods. Or what was happening, to short story, it was that she was gaslighting the family member into thinking that the reason that she was not using this coffee machine was because it was too pricey. This woman makes 6 figures. Also, if you're in a friendship with me, the way that I love, one of my secondary love languages is gifts, right? First one is words of affirmation. So you is kind and you is good, for sure. But also, I take care of the people that I love. She probably still has bath bombs and things in her house to this day that I sent her from the best of the best so that she could use, because it wasn't something that her husband or other people would do. So I would send her flowers. I would take care of her. I would make sure that she felt very loved. That's what I mean by I put too much dip on my chip. And that's my way. I'm a giver. That's it. I love to give. But now I'm really on this whole lesson from my angels about who are you giving to, and are they worthy of it, and do you need to give to them? Would they give back to you? It doesn't mean that she didn't give back to me, so I'm never going to tell that lie. But it is to say the coffee thing was a lie. She was just being a bitch, and she just wanted to be a bitch, but she didn't want to be seen that way in front of her family's eyes. So then she started to talk about the nickel and dime of coffee. This woman loves coffee. Would spend whatever on Starbucks, whatever the case may be. So I was like, well, let me just up your game, because that's my Taurus moon, right? Luxury. Let me just make sure you have the best of the best. But she was complaining about it. Now, what's so funny is after it was all over with, and I even sent a little meme to her family member, like, oh, this probably could have solved a lot of problems. It was someone refilling Nespresso pods with real coffee, and they have stickers for it. What I would have done, though, because I'm not cheap, is I would have literally sent her coffee for the rest of her life that we were friends. And it wouldn't have been anything she would have had to ask me to do. I would have gladly. It wasn't a conversation that she had with me because she didn't want to have that conversation with me. She wanted to hurt my feelings. That's why she went out of her way to tell me, I'm not using your coffee machine. Like, it was just all so petty. And I was like, bitch, I have been through cults. I've been through people trying to kill me. This is what you want me to do on this fine day? Like, you get your life. But she wanted to gaslight her family members into thinking like, oh, and the family member was like, I don't think she wanted to hurt your feelings. And I was like, I didn't want to bust like family members' bubble because that's your fresh hell to live in. But I was like, that's exactly what she wanted to do. She actually wanted to hurt my feelings. She wanted to be disrespectful. She wanted to be ungrateful because she knows how I feel about gifts. And I remember when I gave her the gift, her husband didn't get her shit that year. And we were all sitting on the floor, opening presents, whatever. She cried and cried and cried. I loved it so much. So all of a sudden she hates it? No, she wanted to be ugly. That's it. She was just being a bitch, which is fine. We all have that duality. She felt like I had attacked her or hurt her because I was holding her accountable. She felt hurt because she thought that I liked the rap more than her, which is so fucking wrong. Like, if you would have told me at the end of this that both of them would be gone, I would have known the rat was gone. I would have never ever in a million years thought she would be gone. I loved her too much. I loved her so much. In fact, she got to stay a lot longer because I loved her. And that's what I mean about people pleasing and how it will, when people are grandfathered into that, they will get more of you. Because when I can see that someone's on some bullshit, the way I'll cut you off and cuss you out and send your ass to therapy so you can start to work on your shit, unless you're a narcissist and you don't want to work on it at all, or a sociopath. I ran into a few of those too. But with her, she talked to me crazy, and that's when the relationship should have been over. But I felt guilty, y'all. I'm not going to hold you. I felt guilty because I was like, I held her accountable. She had a tantrum. She told me she had Alzheimer's. Like, bitch, it was so much disrespectful, wild lies. The Alzheimer's is when I held her accountable. She was like, I have Alzheimer's. And I was like, is that like when Roseanne Barr was racist because she took Ambien? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it was just so ridiculous. Anyway, and what it was is that she didn't want me to hold her accountable. She didn't want me to ask any further questions. And we were good friends, so I would have figured if she really felt like she had early onset Alzheimer's, what she didn't know, and this is how the angels work, is they will seed a blow up or a disconnection with a lot of triggers for you, or little tells. My mother's best friend had early onset Alzheimer's. And while I don't know if I fully communicated that to her, but that's a huge big deal for me. She got sick. She was like at the top of her banking industry. She got sick in her late 40s, early 50s. And now is pretty much almost a vegetable. It's so sad. My mother still goes and visits her every single Sunday. They were best friends in the police force. The friend moved to the country first, said, come on over to my mother. My mother came over here. She allowed her to live with her. My mother got on her feet. My mom built her own house, all that stuff. And so it was so sad. I even lived with this, my mother's best friend during my teenage years when my mom was done with me for a minute. And so this best friend is so near and dear. She's like family. I call her aunt, okay? And my Aunt Eloise is such a sensitive subject for me because it's been so crushing, soul crushing to watch how all of that happened. And she was such a good woman. She did not deserve that, and no one ever does. But when this woman said to me she had Alzheimer's, she just flipped a switch because she didn't know what she was playing with. Even if she maybe has a vague memory that I told her about that, it meant nothing to her. Or she wouldn't understand the implications that someone who was so close to me, her being my good friend, would tell me that she has Alzheimer's way ahead of her time, when it seems like everything else in her life, she had incredible sharp mental acuity. And so I said, this is how you want to play with me? And my angels just kind of were like allowing her to just be her most diabolical self. But that all happened because of a rat. She had always been controlling, I'm talking about, for all these years. And I was able to deal with that. But her lowest vibrational, most diabolical, bitchy, evil ass, inauthentic, mean self came out when she felt challenged by that rat. Because the snake loves to eat a rat. And a rat was always going to go about its business with its slice of pizza that it stole from somewhere off to give someone else rabies, okay? The rat was never a fixture in my life. When I asked the angels, why do you allow us to have it? Why do I have to deal with this crazy bitch and this insane bitch? The insane bitch being the rat, the crazy bitch, or the mean bitch, or the diabolical and authentic bitch being the snake. And they said, you would have never seen the true face of the snake if it weren't for the rat. So if for nothing else, give thanks to the rat, because even her presence was enough to exacerbate the demons inside of the snake so that she would show her real fangs, unhinge her fucking jaw so that she could eat your face. and then want to play with you and be like, what is happening? What are we doing? What is going on? People know when they're fucking playing with you. And she was playing with me. And I've been played with by the best, unfortunately. That's why this channel exists. I've been played with from cult leaders to actual clansmen and members and grand wizards. Like, people have tried to fucking take my life. So I said, bitch, if you think this is not, I'm not going out without a fight, I didn't stay here this long for you to try to play mind games with me. You've lost your goddamn mind. And your friends and family, even when I disembark, you know what I say about that disembarkation, Simone Biles, Tales Across the Board? I said, your secret's safe with me, meaning I'm not going to tell your friends and family that you are so freaking, they know. I'm not going to tell them. I'm not even going to try to fight for my life here. I got that little piece of information about how she was gaslighting her daughter about the coffee. And I was like, and I did tell her daughter this. I said, now you know that I would have sent your mother coffee for the rest of her life. And she's like, yeah, but I just don't think she would want you to. Yeah. Because it wasn't about the coffee, and it wasn't the price of coffee and the dollar pods. I would have refilled them myself, or I would have sent her favorite fresh coffee. It was about her being disrespectful to me. A disrespectful see you next Tuesday to me. That's exactly what it was. She just wanted to disrespect me. And she wanted me, because I wasn't noticing all the stuff, because my trauma response is that I don't give tells when people are abusing me to my face, because that's how I survived from narcissistic abuse and crazy fucking people. So she was in my face. She like lured me to her house only to be disrespectful, which is exactly what my twin flame did. My twin flame lured me there. She was coming to take care of you. She was like throwing shit at me, slamming doors, giving me the silent treatment. Like, it was so toxic and diabolical. And I guess she wanted to like live in infamy. And I just felt sorry for her, because I was like, oh, she was really actually crazy, the twin flame. And I was really, really, truly in love with her. I love you as a friend, so it's not hitting the same. But now I'm just looking at you like you're insane. And all those stories you told about how everybody did you down bad, I'm like, or were you just an asshole? Or were you inauthentic? Or did you treat them badly? Because if you would do this to me, you did it to them completely. Okay? So that was my realization about how a rat can bring out the snake. And sometimes in your life, you will have toxic people around you in multiples. Okay? Because that year or two, I was dealing with a lot. And when I asked God why, he said, because if it were not for the rat, you would not have seen the truth about the snake. She would not have assumed you were trying to get her. Because what happened was, if you want to know the backstory, it was that she thought that I was purposely trying to replace her or hurt her, and I wasn't. I was fighting for my life with the rat, which I kept from her energetically, because I didn't want to over inundate her, and I didn't want her to feel any kind of jealousy. Actually, I really wanted to shield and protect her from that. Towards the end of it, when I talked to her kid was like, you can't do that. You can't like withhold things from her at all and whatever. And then she said a few other things, and I was like, okay, boom, there it is. Whoop, there it is. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is the kind of crazy that I was dealing with. And ironically, she said, oh, my mom, does this and that, whatever. She wasn't being mean. She was very innocent. In fact, the truth is, she wasn't like she was trying to save it, to be honest with you. But the more she talked, the more I knew I had to go. Because I was like, oh, you don't realize, because I couldn't tell her because they're enmeshed in their own thing. And I was like, you don't get it. You don't understand what's happening here. She was really advocating for her mom, to be very fair. But I realized, like, I am not safe here, because the woman kept telling me, like, oh, I'm over you holding me accountable, meaning, like, I'm okay now, we're fine. But you know what I say, guys, it will seep out of your pores. She was on demon time. She wanted to get me back. She wanted to hurt me. Why on earth was someone who's making 6 figures going to tell me I don't believe in entrepreneurship? And I'm like, that doesn't offend me. Bitch, no one's ever believed in me. Are you kidding me? I don't give a fuck if you believe in what I do or not, even though it's benefited you. That part. But I don't, like, if I needed someone to believe in me, I wouldn't be here. There have been so many people that went out of their way to shit on me, okay? So I was like, your belief doesn't fucking make or break me at all. But it was just her way of trying to, like, extract blood from me. She wanted me to be, you know what I always say about tantrums and kids, they won't want to share how they feel inside. So whatever level of misery or feeling ostracized or whatever was happening between us, she wanted me to feel that, even though what was happening was that I was just setting boundaries. And I was happy to stay in the relationship with her, but I said, this part's off limits. The part that you cussed me out about when I was trying to help you and edify you and tell you was kind, you was nice, you deserve more, that part we're never talking about. And that's what she was pissed about. How dare you not let me fucking bitch to you about this shit. And what the benefit for me about her not bitching about that shit was everything in my life started to get better and better, okay? Because, and when I cut off the connection, I'm not even exaggerating, y'all. This is what happens on the other side. While I could count, she was becoming a karmic relationship. That money was just going out. And all I'm doing is spending money to try to show up and be like, we the best, we the friends, you the friend, you the goodest friend, you the nicest friend, whatever. All that stuff I was trying to do with her, I was like, she turned karmic right before my eyes. And as soon as I cut her off, because I promise you, if she were here right now, she would be like, oh, absolutely, there's no way that you spent more money doing stuff with me than you did with the rat. Absolutely. Literally a third of the money that I spent with the rat, it was compared to the snake. Does that make sense? It was a chunk. It was chunk, y'all. And it was all so that we could keep being fake and whatever. Because I was like, where's your authenticity? Why won't you level with me? By the end of it, I was having to like read her body language, and we were speaking in primal energy because she was doing fuck shit. And I was like, what the fuck is this? If you don't want me here that bad, sis, say less. I have left better places, right? So, when I disembarked, I'm not exaggerating, my credit score went up 48 points. I don't even know why. I mean, I know why. But, like, I have been working on that for the last several years, and I finally got up into the magical numbers that I had been trying to get to. I said, I want to thank you, Jesus. But it was just, there were so many other things like that that happened that let me know she had become karmic. Because staying attached to her, things weren't growing, and things weren't happening, and things weren't moving. And they also said she's a blessing eater. And while I was done with soulmate dating, especially after the rap, I knew that that will not always be the state that I'm at. And one day, you know, it's going to be different. But they said it won't be with the snake here. And so they were like, get her the fuck out the paint, because she hates any happiness that's near you. She's in her own situation, miserable to whatever degree. And maybe she's happy. I don't know. God bless. I hope she is. But they said any blessing, whether it's a soulmate person to connect with and date, whether it's money, whether it's travel, like she's already told you how much she's monitoring you. She was a monitoring spirit. It's that simple. And they said you could not have anything with her around. Nothing. I know she may have thought, well, I'm actually glad the way it played out, because she knew that I had like disconnected from the rat. She was around longer than the rat was because of that people pleasing and the fact that she was ingratiated into my life, and I really loved her. And I just thought, I was like cleaning my glasses, like, I can't be seeing this right. But it was right. I was right. And at the end of it, she just unfurled and unhinged her jaw and gave me a great fight. And she was like, I'll swallow you fucking whole, bitch. I was like, you want to fight with me? I was just appalled in the most amusing way, because I was like, I'm not the one you want to fight with. I'm really not the one you want to fight with. You're not really built for this. See, I'm built for this. Built for tough. I've been through more than enough. And I've been through it with people that were more diabolical than you. Because if you really want to come after me, it's not me that's going to do you. It's my ancestors that are going to do you. And my dad is kind of ruthless. Total narcissist. I don't know that they change much when they cross over. They just know that they need to make amends to the people that they didn't do right by. And he's on that kind of time. So I was just like, you are wiling, sis. This is not the fight you want. This is not what you want with me. So I'm going to just disembark nicely. We're going to go about our separate ways happily. And you don't get to control me. You don't get to direct me. And I don't care how velvet the glove is, sis. You don't get to pummel me into submission. That's it. Also, especially when you don't want an ounce or a modicum of accountability. The overarching lesson here, guys, was we both were dealing with codependency. I was codependent on her, too. That's the reason that she stayed around as long as she did. Because anybody else, I would have cut him off. I would have cussed her the fuck out the same day that she said what she said to me. The way that I handled it was so diplomatically. And even that was offensive to her. And I was like, oh, you don't know me. You don't really want to know the real me. We really aren't compatible, because the cuss out that you actually deserve, I'll just reserve it for a TED Talk later. I'm never going to say it to her, because I realized that she was just hurt. See, that's the thing, is the way that we work, guys, is we can tell when people... I know what was wrong with her. I know what she was unhappy about. And in fact, I'll tell you something. I stayed very much longer. I stayed a long time. I elongated my stay. because there was a family member in her life that was crossing over. And I knew she would need someone to hold space a little bit with her and hold her through that. And my angels had asked me to leave right away. They said, none of this is your responsibility. She doesn't even deserve you to be this kind about this family member that's crossing over. But I overrode what my angel's direction was, and I stayed until that family member crossed over. I was already disenchanted. I lost all respect. I lost all love. I lost all connection. But I am very duty bound that way, which is not necessarily healthy. And it's also because I missed my exit ramp. The exit ramp was the day that she went rogue and was talking to me crazy. All those months prior to the family member crossing over was when I should have left. And that's my fault. So I said, okay, well, I'm just going to put in this last little tour of duty here. And we're going to just do what we do, you know. And even that was full circle. God rested dead, but the truth is the truth. She had invited me to a trip. And we went down to the Keys. She's like, we're going to stay with this family member, someone that was in their 80s that had crossed over. And she neglected to tell me that the family member was racist. Later, she would give me regular reports on how the family member was fatphobic and racist, but she always insisted that I spend time with her because she loved me so much. But anyway, so and she would tell me the fatphobic things that the family member would say all the time. Like, now that I look back, I'm like, she didn't like me at all. She was really a hater. Like, she really didn't like me, because even if that was the case, like, you know how to keep that to yourself. You're grown. At your big age, you know better. So, in any case, the first time I'm there, I was like, where are we going to stay? Because I'm a big Airbnb girl. I was like, I could do it my own way. She's like, oh, we're going to stay with her. So we stay with her in like a retirement community kind of thing, and it's like kind of a very little home, you know, in Alamorada, I think. In any case, and I'm grateful. Thank you for the hospitality. But the family member, and I could feel the energy. I was like, God, she doesn't like me. I don't know what's going on. Again, she just set me up. She didn't tell me the lady was racist. And I'm literally standing in the shower, and I'm showering, and I hear rumbling, and I'm like, oh, maybe something fell off the sink, you know, I put my clothes or whatever, and she comes in, and she couldn't wait to get me alone and vulnerable like this. She rips back the curtain, and she opens the curtain. I'm there naked, under the water, and wet. She said, why did you come here? You shouldn't be here. This is kind of shit I deal with on a regular fucking basis, guys. Like, I'm like, oh, this is life. And my friend, my sweet, sweet, sweet friend, knew that her person in her family was this kind of racist. And instead of giving me a heads up, was just like, oh no, everything will be fine. It's great. It'll be all good. Instead of being considerate. That's what I mean by selfish, because it's not a position she's ever having to be in. She also... It was difficult for her to tolerate that family member too, but subject me to it, why not? Fuck you. So this elderly lady is standing there, and she is questioning my very existence. Why am I in her house? And the curtain's drawn back, and it's like at least a couple of minutes, which felt like an eternity, where she's like looking at my body and looking me up and down. Like, y'all, it was a fucking real life nightmare. Like, get out. Adieu, okay? And I was like, the things that I do for you, the things I do for love, because I love that woman so much. But she did not care about protecting me. And the reason I say that is, while she kept telling everybody, she's not showing up for me, which was bullshit, because we can, by my CPA account, how much I showed up for her, wildly ungrateful, I put myself in that position, that very uncomfortable position, where then my friends still wanted me to play nice, because when someone's weird and racist to you, and they're fucking like, who does that? Never in my life has that happened. I've been around some crazy people. But the family member that crossed over, I still held my friend's hand as that was going on, even though that's the way that woman had treated me. Now, did she warm up to me later? Yeah, that's kind of one of my gifts, is I know how to survive with people that are racist and that hate me. I don't know. That's how I'm still here. Otherwise, I would have been dead a long time ago. So later, she would, you know, look for me and whatever, and whenever I'd lost a pound, she'd tell me, wow, you're not as fat anymore, you know, like good times. Anyway, So I still held my friend's hand to help her go through that moment while the family member was on hospice and crossing over. And I told my friend right at that moment when we were in the Keys, I said, the whole reason you're in this family and in this life is to actually help this lady cross over. And I wasn't wrong. That was a great part of her mission. Mission accomplished. I'm one that when I check off my missions, though, then I like to graduate. And once that woman died, it all felt very much cohesive. It felt like it was fate. It felt like everything was supposed to pass away. It felt like we had done the work we were supposed to do. I didn't have any remorse or regrets. I was slightly amused at her hubris and she thought so, like, yeah, only because I've had some formidable opponents. And I was like, you're so hurt and you just really want my attention back the way you had it, and my fixation and my focus the way it once was. And I will love you for the rest of my life, but not to the detriment of myself anymore, and not to have to diffuse every family fight, and not to have to be insulted where I stand naked and wet because you don't have the respect for me to tell me, hey, this woman's filled with disrespect. Message. But I needed to fit into all of that. And I say just a few of these examples in this last hour and a half that I've been chatting, and there was many more. But that is what I was dealing with, and she wanted me to fit myself into it every time, and she was so selfish and didn't think about how that was demon time for me, or how that emotionally affected me, or how I would feel, or any of it. It was just like, oh, well, whatever. And again, yes, it is a gift. I have a bit of an ambassadorship for racist, hateful fucks. I know how to survive them so I don't die. But I mean, I know that seems cruel and intense, but that was intense for me. And I just was like, can you ever put yourself in my shoes, that I don't always want to have to do this actually? And when I was helping her, move into new friendships, the people that she was with were far more compatible for her. They were, first of all, her same color. And I'm not one that thinks about that. Y'all know my husband's Caucasian, etc., etc. I've dated every single body of every ethnicity and of sexuality. So I'm very not conservative the way she was, but I was like, no, you actually need friends that are Caucasian like you and that share similar things that you do, because as much as you want to stretch she was an air sign, and Aquarius specifically, and so that means that she really is delighted by all of humanity, but I think it should be relegated to being cordial with the person who's maybe serving her, because in-person connection, she could not put herself in that other person's shoes. And while I am good at that because it's something I've always had to do, I realize that unless you've ever been pushed to have to do that, you don't have to. So she couldn't even understand why any of the things I even just said, even if she listened to this right now, she'd be like, well, I don't know. But that's okay. She didn't have to know. It was too much for me. She was behaving too selfishly and too much control and too much just lack of consideration for what I was giving to that connection. And you can only be taken for granted for so long. And so I was like, no, these other friends are better for you. I did not feel any jealousy. I wasn't sad about it. I didn't want to double back. I felt like these will be people that you won't attack, actually. And I did say that to her in my disembarkation. I said, you will know exactly how not to say all of the tea that's going on in their relationship to them. You will never talk to them the way you talk to me. And I said, what's the difference between me and them, do you think, actually? I'll let you figure that out. Why do you think you will know how to restrain yourself, even if you're pissed, even if they cross your boundaries, even if you're frustrated with them on a bad or good day, but you wouldn't talk to them in the same way you talk to me? That's a mystery, but it doesn't have to be. Search your heart and you'll see that you knew the truth all the way. All the time, and you knew the truth completely. Y'all, listen, what I have learned is that I was so enamored with, I love love. That's literally what I'm here to do, is to teach about love in all its forms. This is a platonic relationship that went so fucking rogue. But the truth of the matter is this: you can't stop loving people. But I have learned a lot more about boundaries. I have learned a lot about enmeshment. And I healed that codependency. That's what she was here for. She was a soulmate. And she did a great work with me, because I will never be in a relationship like that again with anybody. And it doesn't mean I want to hermit forever, but I heal that I need to have someone that's like right up underneath me thing. And I don't care if it's a soulmate girlfriend. I don't care if it's a soulmate best friend. I don't need that kind of level of emotional spying and monitoring, because it's not intimacy. Because she wasn't honest with me. Intimacy would have been us sharing. And maybe there was a point where we did share, but really she was just priming me for commiserating, honestly. And because she wasn't sharing her honest thoughts. All the stuff that was confirmed by her family members about her real true motivations, intentions, and jealousies, I had to have direct conversations with her about each and every one of them in a fair way. Not in like, you tell me what you're saying, girl. I was like, can we talk about this? Like, do you want to, there's something else going on? Or like, what happened? Or why did you say that to me? This is how I talk to her. I was so calm and and even when her family member was talking to me, I could tell the narrative. And it was one that I was like, I don't want to invite myself to this anymore, that a black woman accosted you. Because her family member was so sweet and she was very diplomatic, but she was like, well, you are very particular with your words. And sometimes your words can be very harsh. And I was so tempted to send the family member the voice note that I sent her. There's a reason I communicate the way I do. I type, I voice note, and then I communicate directly with you. Well, she had lost the privilege of direct communication because she was gaslighting and lying and lying and lying. And so I was like, okay, well, obviously you can't hear it. So maybe you'll listen to this and you can listen to it twice and you can really hear it. And I was so calm. I didn't curse her out. I wished her well. I told her we met our objectives. I was proud of us. I loved her. I just was not happy anymore. Like, I'm good at a breakup. Unfortunately, I never thought I would say that in my codependent ass empath life. Did I ever think that I would say I'm good at a breakup? But I am. I know how to understand how to slide out. I read the room for each person. I know what they need, what their inner child wounds need, what's really going on. So I do understand how to navigate that. And I was so sweet with her. I even told her that I ended it with saying like how everyone thinks of her is just so sweet. And that's how it should be. That's how I thought of her initially. And she should be that, because whatever is in me made her feel triggered. And when someone's triggering you, whether you are triggering them or they're triggering you, it's not a relationship that you should continue to do. If someone's bringing out the worst in you, if I got to see the snake in her because of the rat, but because she felt like she wanted to get back with me, then our relationship was over completely. It was way beyond repair in communication. Because what she wanted was me back in submission. She wanted me to fucking listen. She wanted me to show up on the trips and shut the fuck up and not complain and not tell her no, I'm not transmuting everybody else's bullshit, and not set up boundaries and not stick up for her even. And that's not a friendship I can be in. That's lacking all authenticity, all real connection. I am a fire sign. I don't know how not to stick up for my friends. And honestly, the friendships that I enjoy were people stick up for me. I've met people recently in the last couple of years that didn't know me from a can of paint before a year ago or so, and had a vitriolic response to some of the behavior from the rap. And it helped me to kind of have mental clarity about what I was dealing with, because they were pissed on my behalf, and they don't even know me that well. We are knowing each other now and getting to know each other, but they were just, and they weren't trying to take her spot or none of that. They didn't give a fuck about that, but they just were incandescent. That's how I do friendship. I relate to that. That's how I am. I will stick up for you. I'm like, not too much, absolutely not. Nope, I don't like it. I'm that way with my clients. So I just couldn't relate to her wanting me to be a eunuch around her and to like cut off all of my power and just, unless it was for her benefit and for her to devour in exactly how she wanted to. Velvet fist, or iron glove, velvet fist, velvet fist, velvet glove, iron fist, that part. And I was tired of it, and I didn't deserve it, and she didn't know how many ways I had contorted myself to be berated by her family members when they were having a cranky morning or day, or to be berated by that elderly lady who was like, why are you black and standing in my way? Like, girl, she came into my bath time. Okay, it was in her house, to be fair, but did that. And I was just like, what the actual fuck? And actually, had that had been me, I would have immediately been like, you're out of pocket and I'm going to take my friend to a hotel. But she was just like, oh, just roll with the punches. Well, fortunately, I know how to roll with them pretty well, again, or I wouldn't be here. But that's the kind of bullshit I'm dealing with people. And then they're like, I don't understand why you're upset. Like, what are you even complaining about? You should be grateful, I guess. Thank you for another strength building, character building exercise. I know I'm one of God's strongest soldiers, but when you're going out of your way to allow people to fucking terrorize me, and you're not like taking up for me, and then I just eat it and eat it and eat it, there comes a point where the threshold is reached. It's like there's nothing else I can do. And even I went above and beyond to hold space for her while that very same lady crossed over, because I was like, this might be tough for you, even though she's an air sign, so they're quite cold about everything. And anyway, I won't say that here, but let me finish with this. When you go into battle with people emotionally or any other way, you get their energy, okay? That's why I was like, do you really want to fight with me? But my angel's like, you need to fight with her, because one of the things that you're missing, sweet empath Monette, is detachment. For years and years and years, I'd be so worried about people that tried the shit out of me and that were horrible to me. And my angels had me be around 2 air signs in the last year and a half, 2 years. The rat and the snake were both air signs. And what I got to take from them after vanquishing them in battle, meaning getting them out of my life, divorcing myself from their energy, not missing them, all of that stuff, was I learned detachment. And I learned how to be cold as fuck. And I learned how to be a bitch in a certain kind of way. Now, I have bitchy energy because I'm a fire sign. We all have a bitch fire in us. But air signs do it different. They are so cool, so cold, so removed. And the very same things that they might have wanted to use against me, I was able to use to cut myself free. I am not an evil person, so I did not use it against them. What I did was I cauterized wounds, and then I moved on so that I could heal and make new friends and new family and new soulmate people and all the rest of it. But what I got from them in battle was the ability to vanquish that weeping, bleeding heart empathy, which is a detriment to a lot of us. And so I have battled with water signs, and I have battled with earth signs, and they have their own powers too. But the superpower for the air sign is to be able to say fuck you and really mean it, and actually not care about it, and actually not want to look back, and actually detach. Feelings, what are those? And so I learned that from my Aquarian friend and my Libra, my Aquarian snake and my Libra rat. I learned how to detach. And it was something that I needed. And in that way, were they soulmates? Yes. Karmics? Yes. All of them rolled in one? Yes. Have I been someone's karmic and soulmate? Yes. But what I learned was how to get a job done. Finally. In all of my 44 years, that detachment was one of the superpowers that I was missing in my Thanos rings. And so when they decided that they wanted to play games with me, my angels were like, you're going to be fine. You're going to make it out of this. You fought bigger giants than this. And that's the truth. But what they said was, there's a little something in it for you, which is you can take their superpower and now you can teach people about the truth. Because truth is not something either of them wanted to touch with a 10-foot pole. The rat was a certain kind of diabolical regarding lies, but it turns out that the snake was a liar too. She didn't want to see that ugly side of her. She wouldn't integrate her shadow. She refused. And the angel said, guess what? Even when you walk away, it's still work she's going to have to do. But now it's not going to be fun. Now it's not going to be with you there playing patty cake and telling her she is nice, she is smart, she is good. It's going to be with life, ravaging her ass and teaching her how to not be disrespectful and holding her accountable, and people seeing the mask a lot quicker. That's what happens karmically as retribution when people try to pick on you or try to subjugate you in any way. You're in their life. For the rat too, there were lessons that I was supposed to teach her in an easier manner, but she was diabolical, man. And she went out of her way. I could see there were so many things with her and her own insecurities that I understood and had compassion for. But they were like, but does she have compassion for you? Or is she just like steady committed to judging you and being an asshole to you? And they said, we know that you're not going to do that back for her because that's just not how you're built, empath, but the world will. And so now she will get back with glaring. She always questioned. She had a repeating pattern, the rat, where people, after their relationship with her, would find themselves on someone's internet trying to pick apart. And I'm talking about with men too. So that was a particular interest to me, that she would be discussed in groups afterwards, or there would be accusations and all this weird shit, or it would be literally like someone start like on a Facebook group being like, is this normal? If you have repeated stories that's how people are handling an outcome or a situation with you, I know I do this for a living. Like, this is what I do. But if a man, because that's not something that men do specifically, is seek help in a group, I said, sis, the problem is not everyone else. The problem might be you. It doesn't mean that that man wasn't diabolical or abusive or whatever. I will never take her story in or her experience in that regard from her. But me as a practitioner and a projector in human design, it's very clear for me to see how 1 + 1 = 2 and not 3. Like, I was like, girl, you're the problem. It's you. If everyone is in so much illusion and Neptune energy after going through you, who's crazy? Who's the person? And I'm not trying to be ableist, but I actually feel like there are some actual disorders. I will not call them out because she doesn't want to do therapy. Fuck, why am I going to do it for her? But who's actually pathological? Who's actually fill in the blank, fill in the blank, fill in the blank? And everyone you know, if many people have think tanks and groups afterwards try to figure out what the fuck just happened to them, it's not them. Okay? That's a problem that's unique to you. But in any case, the same for the snake too. This codependency and controlling thing, it's not the first time that's happened. I'm just the first person who's maybe seen it. And when the child was gaslighting me, the child who was a woman and an adult, I must always disclaim that, was like, you're not allowed to set boundaries with her. You can't set boundaries with my mom. Like, that's not how you guys became friends. And I was like, no, that's not how we became friends. But then she was really disrespectful about this one thing. And would you take this? And that child has fantastic boundaries. That woman, adult woman, daughter, has brilliant boundaries. Okay, so I was appalled. I said, oh, the gaslighting and the brainwashing is real. You're telling me this is not allowed, but you would do it and have done it and do it all the time. What are you talking about, ma'am? While I have much respect for her, I realize that's when the sickness is much deeper. And I was like, oh, this is not my therapy session to do with this daughter at all. I didn't say a word to her other than like, well, what do you mean? You've done it. And I said, you know what? And she had a good point. To be fair, it'd be lovely if we didn't have to have boundaries. It'd also be lovely if your mama wasn't cussing me out when I was just trying to help her. That's also lovely too. So since that couldn't happen, now the boundaries do. Okay? And she hated it. Hated it. You remember Men on Film when they're like, hated it. She hated it. It was not a movie she wanted to watch again. 10 out of 10. She wouldn't recommend. Boundaries, what are those? How dare you tell me no? That's what we were dealing with. So everyone has themes, including me. One of my themes, just to be honest, is being incredibly fidgety when I notice fuckery. Because I've dealt with so much fuckery for so long and people trying to repeatedly do me wrong, one of my themes now, unfortunately, that my angels are working with is I'm a bit skittish. Because now I'm like, let me get the fuck out of here. Before they try to get me, okay? Ooh, and I have to teach it to my clients and I have to walk through it myself. Everyone's not always trying to get you. We are going to have to continue to work on our mental health. But man, when you've been through narcissistic abuse and people that are lying to you and telling you they have Alzheimer's and playing mind games with you like the rat, like, girl, it's a lot. It's a lot to transmute. Anyway, it's so good that y'all stayed this long with me. I appreciate you. 45 on the timer right now. Might be an angel number for some of you. Move on, turn the page, let things end. Go to work, back on yourself, my friend. Okay? So good sharing energy with you. Come back and join me next time, guys. We'll continue to evolve together.